The next item of business is a statement by Marie Todd on childcare. The Minister will take questions at the end of her statement should there be no interventions or interruptions. And I call on Marie Todd. Minister, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm grateful for the Parliament's time to make this statement today. Saturday was Mandela Day, and I was reminded of his famous quote, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way it treats its children." I'm proud that in Scotland we are prioritising our children's well-being and the well-being of those who work most closely with them. I reiterate the First Minister's message from her daily press briefings. The safety of the people in Scotland is our first priority. As Minister for Children and Young People, it is my responsibility that all children and their families and all those who work with children and families are kept safe above anything else. And I feel that responsibility keenly as I look at my own community and my own family. Thank you to all of the children and families for everything you have done during this crisis. I also want to give specific thanks to the childcare workforce, many of whom have worked throughout the emergency response period. Thank you. There is no job more important than ensuring that our children are safe, loved and nurtured. Presiding Officer, from the 3rd of June, when childminders and outdoor settings were able to open, to last Wednesday, the 15th of July, when all registered childcare services were able to reopen, formal childcare options have been opening up right across Scotland. Care Inspectorate records show that 942 childcare services and 2,110 childminders were open yesterday. Thousands of families are now able to access formal childcare for the first time since lockdown. This is fantastic news for many people across the country, but I know it will also be an anxious time for some. The evidence tells us that particularly our youngest children are much less likely to catch COVID and become ill. There is also very limited evidence of children transmitting this virus. This fact underpins our decisions to relax restrictions for children and young people. But we must be ever mindful that the risks remain. The virus is here and we have no vaccine. There is a fine line between effective suppression and community transmission. It is essential, therefore, particularly for our precious childcare workforce, that public health measures are front and centre while we reopen services. The message remains largely the same as the guidance published on the 15th of June. Enhanced hygiene and cleaning practice, limiting children's interactions, maximising the use of outdoor spaces, physical distancing between adults in the setting, including parents at drop-off and pick-up times, and active engagement with Test and Protect. These measures ensure the safety and well-being of staff, children, families and the wider community. On the 30th of July, working closely with the sector, we will publish a suite of guidance for the childcare sector which will come into effect in August. Alongside this guidance, we'll publish the scientific evidence and the public health advice which has helped us inform these decisions. This updated advice indicates we can remove the need for consistent bubbles of up to 8 children and we can ease the current restrictions on blended care. I know that this will be welcome news to the sector and to members in this Parliament. However, this will not be a return to normal childcare arrangements, and we will all have to think very carefully about how we manage children's interactions. We are all still living through a global pandemic, and evidence of resurgence in the virus from around the world and closer to home underlines just how fragile our progress to date has been. Therefore, the virus must continue to be suppressed. To be clear, until new guidance is published and the dates confirmed, the current guidance remains in place. While no one wants to keep any of these measures in place any longer than is necessary, I would like to underline to providers they do not stop you welcoming back your children with open arms and a warm hug. We know, and the evidence shows, that keeping a high quality experience at the centre of childcare is what makes the difference for children and what creates such a rewarding profession. That golden thread of quality is just as important now more than ever. Perhaps now it needs to have a core of steel. Quality relationships, quality interactions, quality practice are woven through our children's experiences in childcare in Scotland, and quality remains our focus. We know that childcare providers have been really worried about their ongoing sustainability and being able to keep going for the children that they care for and for their families and for the staff. And the last few months have shown us just what a vital role the childcare sector plays in Scotland's overall economic recovery, as well as to enable us to achieve our ambitions of improving children's outcomes. Together, national and local government and sector representatives have been looking carefully at measures which support the childcare sector during this challenging time. We're also pressing UK government for more action at a UK level. On Tuesday this week, the Cabinet Secretary for Economy, Fair Work and Culture and myself wrote jointly to our counterparts in the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy and the Department for Education, emphasising the importance of the childcare sector to economic recovery, in particular urging them to influence the Chancellor to consider tax-free childcare to support parents. We recognise that childcare is a varied sector with a large number of small businesses, social enterprises, third sector organisations and self-employed workers. We depend on this vibrant difference to give children and families what they need, and so we need to support all parts of the system. The Deputy First Minister announced last week on the 16th of July an £11.2 million Transitional Support Fund for private and third sector childcare providers to help them to address the impact of the pandemic response. Providers will be able to find out more about that fund by the end of July. This will be for all private and third sector childcare providers, not just those delivering funded early learning and childcare. We've also worked in partnership with the Scottish Childminding Association to establish a workforce support fund, which opened for applications on 16th July to help childminders who are facing short-term financial difficulties. The Scottish Government and the UK Government introduced a range of measures to support businesses through the closure period, including the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme and the Bounce Back Loan Scheme. The Scottish Government and local authorities guaranteed that payments for the statutory early learning and childcare entitlement continued for the duration of closures, ensuring millions of pounds continued to be paid to providers. Presiding Officer, this government remains absolutely committed to making Scotland the best place in the world to grow up. COVID-19 will not stop that. We made a commitment in 2014 to deliver the most ambitious childcare offer to anywhere in the UK. And in March this year, Audit Scotland said we were on track to deliver. When the scale of the national emergency became clear, we took the really difficult decision to take away the legal duty on local authorities to deliver the ELC expansion from this August. The Parliament approved this step on the 1st of April. Local authorities have had to focus on managing their local response to COVID-19, and I am grateful for their incredible efforts, along with partners in the private and third sectors. This decision weighs heavily on me, as I know it does on many in this Parliament, but I have been clear from the outset that we have not stopped the expansion. Councils have continued to develop their ELC offer, even over the recent months, and I'm delighted to see many councils are telling us that they have the capacity to deliver more than the minimum of 600 hours. It is such welcome news to hear that in some parts of the country, councils are able to provide 1140 hours to eligible children from August, and as restrictions ease, more will be able to do so. We are determined to return to our commitment to the expansion of childcare for all children, and we will work with local government and providers to deliver on this as quickly as possible. We are confident that the careful reopening of childcare we are setting out ensures that all children and the adults working with them will be and feel safe. to allow them to make the most of their time together. Our public health measures are key to keeping children and staff safe and healthy, but the experiences children have ensures children's development flourishes, and all working in this sector can fully embrace the work that they love so much. I was so reassured to hear this in a wonderful video from the Lullaby Lane Nursery in Bearsden, where the message was clear. Things may be a little different when you return, but the fun and the love will remain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. The Minister will now take questions on the issues raised in her statement. I intend to allow around 20 minutes for questions, after which we must move on to the next item of business. It would be helpful if members who haven't already done so would press the R in the chat function now to register they wish to ask a question. And I call Jamie Green to be followed by Ian Gray, please.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I thank the Minister for her statement in advance? The new guidance on bubbles and blended care will be welcome news to many watching this. But also the Minister will be aware of huge strength of feeling on the issue of childcare. Our inboxes are full of letters from parents who have illustrated that out there in the real world, the very direct link between childcare and their ability to go back to work. COVID has been impactful, no one disagrees with that. But it's also been clear to Parliament for some time that their plans to expand childcare were making painfully slow progress and were not on track long before this crisis hit. So there was very little in today's announcement that fills parents with any confidence that the Minister's commitments to childcare will be delivered anytime soon. Can I ask the Minister the following? How many of our 32 local authorities have still committed to offer 1140 hours of childcare from August this year? Many nurseries in the PVI sector have confirmed that they do have capacity to deliver 1140 hours. So why are councils who inevitably use their childcare budgets for COVID not being supported to deliver those hours with the capacity that we already have? And given that this was a national policy, why have we effectively created a postcode lottery in childcare in this country, whereby your ability to participate in the workplace is now dictated by who you pay your council tax to? That surely must be unacceptable to the Minister, as it is to the many thousands of parents who have made their voice loudly heard on this issue.
Minister, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The decision that was made about 1140-hour delivery was not out of choice. The effects of the COVID-19 pandemic across many aspects of our life have been and will continue to be damaging, and the delay to building work, the delay to recruitment to support delivery of 140 has meant that, out of fairness, we couldn't expect all local authority areas to be in a position to deliver a duty to provide 1140 hours. But that's not a uniform position, and the postcode lottery that the member refers to is a result of the point at which the pandemic disrupted our delivery. So back in March, not everyone was ready to deliver 1140 hours because we had committed to delivering it in August this year. Back in March, though, comfortingly, the audit report confirmed that we were on track to deliver in August. And that is what gives me confidence that we will get back on track as soon as we possibly can. I know that I am committed, government are committed, local authorities are committed, and everyone in the sector, our passion is entirely undimmed to deliver this commitment. But at this moment in time, we can't reasonably assess when delivery will be achievable. We've committed to reviewing readiness later in this year, and we'll reintroduce the duty to deliver 1140 as early as we possibly can. Regarding the number of local authorities who are able to commit to 1140 hours, of course that's a changing picture. As the guidance around operational guidance for childcare is reviewed, the impacts on capacity will change, but thus far we have 2 local authorities who are committed to delivering in August, and I expect that if we are able to further ease restrictions, that will change going forward. So I would urge people to look out for updates, both from government and from their local authority, on what the likely offer is to be. In terms of the financial importance of this sector, I would say you can see, I mean, we have been totally committed to quality throughout our, talk about the 1140-hour expansion. It is absolutely the golden thread through everything we see. But everybody understands now the economic imperative to get childcare fully operational to enable people to work. And it is disappointing, therefore, that the Chancellor did not mention that at all when he was making his grand announcements about economic recovery, and neither has he put in place any scheme to support the sector, unlike the Scottish Government, nor has he put in place any scheme to support parents to pay for costs. And as I said in my statement, myself and my colleague Fiona Hislop have written to the UK Government this week to request that he do so quickly.
Ian Gray, please. To be followed by Alison Johnson.
Thanks very much, and thanks to the Minister for early sight of her statement. Women at work are facing a perfect storm. There was a pre-existing gender employment gap. They are more likely than men to be employed in jobs affected by the crisis, and statistically they spend more time looking after children who've been forced to stay at home. So if the Scottish Government does not urgently come up with a plan to deliver the required childcare alongside good quality secure jobs, women will be the worst affected when the furlough scheme ends. This is not that plan. It doesn't remotely rise to the imperative of the jobs crisis we face. We need something much more than a joint letter to the Chancellor. Look, a delay to the implementation of 1140 hours for all might be understandable, but the Minister has previously suggested a delay of a year, and that is unacceptable. So will she give us a timetable now? Will she resource her own pledge? And will she bring in the 1140 hours for all as soon as possible and long before next August?
Minister, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I can assure the member that we will bring in the 1140 hours commitment for all as soon as we possibly can. I hope he understands that it is my wish to do that almost as much as everybody else in the chambers. So there are a number of challenges involved in that, though. For the last 4 months, local authorities have been focused quite rightly on responding to the emergency situation that we find ourselves in. They have also had to put in place critical key worker childcare to ensure that frontline workers were able to respond to the emergency situation. And a whole suite of interventions have been required by our local authority partners. Added to that, the guidance around the public health guidance, the operational guidance does impact on capacity. So we may not be able to have quite so many children in each setting as we originally planned, although, as I said, that is expected to be updated at the end of the month, and I hope that that will relieve that particular challenge. The next challenge that we have is that very few local authorities have been able to progress with recruitment. There are also staff who are unable to attend their work at the moment because of shielding. And then finally, we have the very obvious challenge that construction was halted because of the pandemic and has only been able to restart recently. I think all of those challenges mean that it is, and you know, everybody agrees that it was absolutely unavoidable that we had to pause with the expansion. But we are working absolutely, totally committed to resolve these challenges and to get back on track with 1140 hours. Nobody more than me wants to get us back on track. I am keen to see it happen, and I expect to see it happen very soon.
Now, thank you very much, but these are quite, if you forgive me, quite long answers, and I've got 12 people and I'm looking at less than 12 minutes. So if we could just move along a little in the interest of everyone getting their questions, crisp questions and reciprocal answers. Alison Johnson, followed by Beatrice Wishart, please.
Thank you. Minister, you said in your statement that on the 30th of July you will publish guidance that will come into effect in August. You said that bubbles would be removed and certain restrictions on blended care would be removed. For clarity, Minister, school begins in 19 days. Will parents be able to use a childminder? Will a childminder be able to take children to local authority and independent nurseries? And will children be able to go to after-school clubs after school?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I understand why Alison Johnson is asking this question, but I am unable to give clarity at this moment. And I would love to be able to give clarity about just exactly what the arrangements are going to be when school opens. But you'll understand that we are reviewing scientific advice on a very regular basis, and we are also having to put right, in collaboration with the sector, new operational guidance. And whilst undoubtedly it is our intention to remove bubbles and to remove the restriction on blended childcare when school opens, that is absolutely our intention. And should we continue to progress in the way that we have been making progress against this virus, in the way that we have been, we will be able to. But the decision on whether that is possible will not be made until next week's Cabinet meeting, and it will not be announced until the 30th.
Thank you, Beatrice Wishart, to be followed by Rona Mackay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd like to ask about the decision by Scottish ministers to cancel the childcare for key workers before children are due to return to school. It means that key workers will need to find alternative childcare at short notice and just for 1 week. And it means childcare providers have to change their arrangements for just 1 week. Is that not a short-sighted move? And why isn't it wiser to extend for just 1 more week so there can be a smooth transition to school?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. You'll understand I'm very grateful for the question because it gives me the opportunity to state again just how grateful we are for the national effort to care for these children, because without critical childcare, Scotland could not have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic in the way that we did. Now, as formal and informal childcare options have opened up and schools prepare to reopen, we can look now to winding down that critical childcare provision. And on the assumption that schools are going to reopen as currently planned, we've agreed with local government colleagues that local authorities will no longer be required to provide critical childcare from the week commencing the 3rd of August, but they may well do so beyond that point. I anticipate that there will be a period of time where local authorities will need to transition to accommodate the start of school, but I would not expect them to leave critical childcare, critical workers with no access to childcare.
Rona Mackay, to be followed by Amy Harker-Johnson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Firstly, can I say to the Minister how pleased I was to hear her quote from the wonderful Lullaby Lane nursery in my constituency. So my question is, Minister, do you believe the £11.2 million Transitional Support Fund will support providers enough to respond to the changes that are needed to ensure childcare can be carried out in a safe manner?
Minister, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government's aware that the Scottish childcare sector has been working extremely hard to ensure that their settings have put in place the measures that can give staff and parents confidence ahead of their safe reopening. The Transitional Support Fund will help childcare providers in the private and third sectors, including out-of-school care providers, to meet the extra costs incurred to comply with public health guidance in response to coronavirus. And the size of the grant will be available will vary according to the size of the childcare setting, as we acknowledge that additional costs can vary across settings. We will be able to set out more information on this by the 31st of July next week.
Thank you. Jamie Harker-Johnson, followed by Annabel Ewing, please.
Thank you. The Minister has confirmed that the 1140 hours commitment on childcare will be far from uniform across Scotland, and she sees very different levels of provision for parents in some different council areas. But to give some parents some hope, can the Minister confirm what percentage of the infrastructure required to deliver 1140 hours in terms of facilities and staffing is in place now? And can she further confirm how many local authorities have indicated to her that they can reach the 1140 hours level this year if, as she suggests, delivery increases after restrictions are eased?
Minister, I hope you got all that.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It did sound a little bit like I was underwater, but I will try. Hopefully I'll be able to respond. The Audit Scotland confirmed that we were on track to deliver in August this year. The Audit Scotland report, it published in March earlier this year. And of course we know that over 50,000 children in Scotland were already benefiting from more than 600 hours of childcare. So we were well on the way to delivering what was required for August. Unfortunately, it has not been possible to continue with the data collection, which would give us assurance on what stage different councils were at. And of course, as I explained in an earlier answer, they have incurred extra costs and diverted some of the money for 1140 hours towards critical childcare. So what is required is a period of assessment, of readiness, council by council, before we can recommit to a universal statutory duty of 1140 hours. I can say, though, that as well as a couple of local authorities, Stirling and Angus, who are absolutely committed to 1140 hours, there's a number of other local authorities who are keen to deliver. And North Lanarkshire, for example, which covers a very large number of children in Scotland, have made clear that they are able to deliver 1140 hours should be able to deliver 1140 hours should we continue to progress against the virus and restrictions be lifted. They should be able to commit in September. And Glasgow are also very near to delivery, another large local authority covering many children.
Now, I've 8 questioners left, and this is supposed to finish in 4 minutes' time. I'm not wanting that to happen, so please, short questions, short answers. Can't let this run on forever. It's Annabel Ewing, followed by Daniel Johnson, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Returning to the important issue of blended placements, the Minister will be aware that the current restrictions mean for some playgroups, like Aberdare Playgroup in my constituency, that they may have to close their doors permanently. So can I ask the Minister, whilst I very much welcome the indication that new guidance will be coming, can I ask the Minister what specific considerations will be given to the range of circumstances within which blended placements will be permitted, and crucially, from what date? Because otherwise, playgroups like the playgroup in my constituency simply cannot make plans in time to keep their doors open.
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Deputy First Minister confirmed last week, and I've reiterated today, that the latest expert guidance gives us confidence now that we will be able to ease the restrictions on blended childcare from August. The importance of these arrangements is really well understood for families in providing flexibility, and for children in offering a range of experiences, and for providers because they support business models. We have not imposed restrictions lightly, and it does and however will remain really important that we keep in, to counter the risk of virus transmission, we all limit our range of contacts. And if the virus continues to be suppressed, we will be easing the current restriction, but we do need to be mindful that the virus is still out there.
Daniel Johnson, followed by Stuart McMillan.
Parents are receiving very conflicting information regarding the resumption of breakfast and after-school club provision. Different schools are saying different things about whether they're able to recommence in whole, and in some cases some are saying that they cannot restart at all. Given the importance of this situation, but the chaotic and confused current situation, can the Minister set out what she will do to improve this?
Minister, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We are assessing the situation regularly. The current priority is to resume schooling. And we know from what we know about this virus that the risk increases according to the number of interactions we have. So the risk of the virus becoming out of control is greater the more interactions that we have. That's the reason for the limit on the number of interactions. So we will be making very careful assessments as time goes on, and again, an absolutely key date next week on careful assessments on how and when we can remove these restrictions. But it's not the case that we don't understand just how important that is in order to support children and their families as they return to school.
Stuart McMillan, followed by Brian Whittle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Given the importance of ensuring safety within ELC settings and ensuring children have a good early learning experience, can the Minister confirm that the work done in providing for the reopening of the ELC settings has been undertaken with the principles of getting it right for every child and also realising the ambition in mind?
Minister, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I thank the member for this really, really important question. We know there will be challenges in returning to services after a turbulent break. In line with realising the ambition, our focus has to be on supporting children when they're in settings to form a secure and emotionally resilient attachment base, which will stand them in good stead as they grow and develop. Nurturing and attached relationships are absolutely essential to creating the conditions for children to flourish in early learning and childcare. And additionally, all children have a right to play, a right to learn, a right to access experiences that meet their physical, social, emotional and cultural needs, and they have a right to associate with their peers. So in line with Scotland's commitment to getting it right for every child, children also have the right to the best possible health, with their best interests a top priority in all the decisions and actions that affect them. Adults, of course, also have fundamental rights in relation to their health and well-being. So these important rights and considerations have all been factored in the development of a framework for reopening and delivering ELC services.
Brian Whittle, followed by John Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Minister, we know that councils have been paying for key worker childcare hubs from the original 1,140 hours budget. So can I ask, will the councils be reimbursed for this to make sure they have a full funding for the 1,140 hours rollout?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The answer to that is that we are in the process of reassessing the readiness of councils to deliver 1140 hours. We are, as I've mentioned many times, looking at buildings, at staffing, and at partner providers. Councils may well want to revisit their delivery plans and consider partner providers in those, and we will undoubtedly be having negotiations about finances as times go on. We are in regular contact with our local authority colleagues over the cost of this pandemic.
John Mason, followed by Mark MacDonald.
Thank you. Minister, during the pandemic, a lot of employers have been quite flexible and allowed staff who are parents to work at home. Should we expect employers to continue this flexibility, or is there a danger that some of them may draw back on it?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Access to flexible working is highly important and it benefits all workers, and it's especially beneficial for workers with childcare responsibilities, particularly women, as a number of members have raised, who are still regarded as the main carers in a household. Now, although the legal powers governing working are currently reserved to Westminster, we are committed to working with employers directly through their representative bodies to explore ways of promoting and supporting flexible working. Our approach to fair work is underpinned by the Fair Work Convention framework, which defines fair work as work that offers respect, fulfilment, opportunity, effective voice and security. The principle of security includes giving opportunities for hours of work that can align with family life and caring commitments.
Thank you. I call Mark MacDonald, followed by Alistair Allen.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Minister, I've been contacted by constituents who operate businesses which provide music and movement classes for 0 to 5-year-olds. While these are not covered by statutory ELC provision, they are nonetheless important aspects for children and their families. What steps will the government be taking within the guidance to offer some assurances to these businesses about the ability of them to resume offering their classes, particularly as many of them use community facilities, some of which may not yet be reopened under existing guidance?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Firstly, let me say thank you for raising this really important issue. I would really appreciate if you would write to me with the details of the businesses involved and the challenges that they face, and I can give you a fuller answer. There is no doubt that these rich experiences which are offered to children do help them to fulfil their potential and contribute to making Scotland the best place in the world to grow up. So we are really keen to support those businesses and to get them up and running for children. But there are a number of challenges. Indoor operation is challenging. You've heard in discussion about other businesses questions around changing rooms. So I'm keen to hear the details of the particular businesses that you are concerned about, and I'll see what I can do to offer guidance and support.
Alistair Allen, followed by Neil Bibby, please.
Has the Minister been encouraged by the operation of those outdoor nurseries opened earlier in the summer, and has their experience informed the reopening of indoor services?
Minister.
Thank you. Absolutely. Outdoor nurseries, by their very nature, offer a model of childcare which reduces the likelihood of virus transmission. And children in these settings are outdoors for the full time that they attend. They only go inside in the most extreme weather. And the risk of spreading the virus is therefore greatly reduced when compared to indoor environments. Throughout the pandemic, many outdoor nurseries have been acting as emergency childcare hubs and have shared how they've adapted their practice to further mitigate the spread of infection whilst providing high quality experiences for children. And we've consulted with those outdoor nurseries in the developing of our reopening guidance, and we're encouraging the greater use of outdoor play and learning in all early learning and childcare settings. Increased time outdoors will reduce the opportunity for infections whilst giving children positive nature-based experiences which will greatly benefit their physical, mental development.
And Neil Bibby, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Our children, parents and economy need good, affordable childcare. Parents simply cannot work without it. Of the 25 recommendations made by the Economic Recovery Advisory Group, led by Benny Higgins, none specifically related to childcare. Does the Minister accept that an economic recovery requires a childcare strategy from the Scottish Government? And if so, can the Minister explain why the advisory group made no specific recommendations on childcare, and were they asked to do so?
Minister.
I can assure you that the economic importance of childcare is absolutely noted by the government and is clear for all to see. We have recognised how important it is by supporting the childcare sector with a transitional support fund, which will help childcare providers in the private and third sectors, including out-of-care providers, to meet the extra costs that they've incurred comply with public health guidance in response to coronavirus. And these grants which are provided to the sector will be used to support settings in implementing the cleaning measures and all those things that will be required to and allow them to invest in additional equipment needed. And that will reduce the risk of these costs being handed on to parents, which of course is something that I mentioned earlier. We are very keen to see the UK government act on, both in supporting the sector but also in supporting, through the tax regime, supporting parents and families to be able to access affordable childcare.
Thank you, Minister. I thank members. I'll let that run on because it's a very, very important area. That concludes the ministerial statement and questions, and I close this meeting. Thank you all.